Let's see if I can get this to work because I'm having a bad day with technology, which is actually kind of a summary of every single day of my life, but that's okay. So Harry Pedigo here checking in with you, YouTube land. Some announcements, some big announcements. The first of which is I have launched my very own personal blog and website concerning education and music. Check it out at terrypedigo.com, link in the description. Secondly, I wanted to make you aware of my latest blog post. And I understand that in today's culture with the youngsters out there, the wee ones, the ones playing Fortnite and listening to Little Pump, hey, I'm not hating, I'm just stating facts. There seems to be a little bit of a disconnect or a disinterest, perhaps, in the written word, especially when it comes to blogs. And maybe that's kind of true for adults as well, because we're pretty darn into our cellular devices and our computers and our televisions. I know I got my Apple report on my iPhone this week, and it said I spent, I think, 5 hours on YouTube. So things are not looking good for me. I'm probably just going to become a couch potato. Fingers crossed that won't happen. Anyway, I wanted to give you a summary of this latest blog post. It's called The Mozart Effect. Actually, it's called The Modern Day Mozart Effect. And for those of you who don't know, the Mozart Effect was a series of experiments done in 1993, I think, about the year I was born. And basically the experiments were aimed at determining whether or not there was a positive correlation with having test subject listen to Mozart and an increase in their problem solving and spatial reasoning ability. The studies concluded that there was, to some degree, a correlation. And if somebody listened to Mozart, let's say for somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 15 minutes, they would in fact be better at problem solving and spatial reasoning. Now that's interesting, and I heard about this. My mom would turn me on to this when I was a little kid. She would always have us listen to Brahms and Mozart and Beethoven and all these good classics. And I tried to implement that in my classroom. And it was interesting because it seemed like it had, little to no effect or maybe even an adverse effect on students. And I'll elaborate on that. It seemed like when I played that kind of music, students were hitting the snooze button on work and on life. They were like put to bed. I mean, it's so relaxing to the point, some of this classical music, when played at a certain volume, that they were like too relaxed to get work done. And I talked with some of the students about this today. It's like, how come you guys, blah, 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 don't seem to be productive when we listen to this kind of music and do seem to be productive when we listen to, for instance, the Gladiator soundtrack or the Pirates of the Caribbean soundtrack or any of these really adventure action movies with nice soundtracks by people like Hans Zimmer or Howard Shore or whoever. What's the difference? And I was trying to determine really, because I think there is a positive correlation with my students listening to movie soundtracks and increased productivity, not just getting work done fast, but doing good work fast. And so I talked with them about this, and they kind of indicated that they had seen some of these films, and when they listened to the soundtrack, that it sort of elicited an emotional, a memory of an emotion that they experienced watching the film. Like they felt like they were the protagonist of the film when they listened to that again outside the movie. So sort of indicating there might be some sort of neural connection between the soundtrack and the plot, and then when you play the soundtrack in an environment completely different than at home on the couch or in a movie theater. And that was very curious to me, and I'm very interested in exploring that because that sort of seems to indicate that certain types of music that maybe you associate with certain things can ultimately be used as a tool to enhance productivity in the classroom. But what was curious about this is I talked to a younger group who had not seen a lot of these movies, and they sort of indicated that they felt the same sort of feelings, right? There's a kid who had, in 5th grade, and I played a part of the Gladiator soundtrack, and they were like, I don't even know what the movie Gladiator is. Never seen it. Completely unexposed and unaware to it. of it. And that was interesting because it made me think, I wonder if there's something inherent to the emotional tone, the chord structures, the progressions, the notes of these modern day classical composers oriented towards movie scores that elicits a distinctly and maybe objectively, maybe even universal sense of adventure or excitement or inspiration. And that's super interesting to me. So I'm not sure, what are your thoughts on this? I am not a scientist by any stretch of the imagination, but this seems interesting to me, revisiting this idea of the Mozart effect and especially how it relates to the middle school classroom. Fascinating. Let me know your thoughts. Comment in the description or comment in the comment section. The link to my blog is in the description to this video, harrypedigo.com. Check out my blog post a little bit more in depth, a little bit better worded. And I'll catch up with you guys next time. Thanks very much.